Here's the other one. So this is from later on 418, and I did DM you this one. This is the longer one, Ewok. So he said, I teach you about markets. The market doesn't care if you bought higher. So this is to that point we were just making. The market doesn't care if you are underwater. If you bought Ethereum at 5K and now it's 3K, the market doesn't care. But you see, after you might have bought at 5K, somebody else literally bought at 1K. So while you might cry and whine like a wimp at 3K, they're quite happy at 3K because they did a 3X while you did negative 40%.
Mm.
So who should new people be more concerned with? The crying, whining down for 889 days guy that bought at 5K, or the guy that 3X buying 672 days ago? When people buy things, they often do so emotionally, and they prefer good emotions to bad emotions. What do you think feels better for a new guy? See, this is exactly the point we just made. He's laying it out perfectly. Hearing someone crying and moaning that they personally bought higher, or hearing about the mad gains of someone that 3X'd his stack. Are you participating in the most volatile price action to ever exist? Or you are participating in the most volatile price action to ever exist. There's always going to be top buyers, period. And there's always someone that made money selling them the top. Most people just wish the top seller was them. It's funny that people push the price up themselves with their bids, but don't see that they personally are part of the reason that there was a top when there was, because instead of waiting and buying dips, they bought tops. Personal responsibility is quite rare these days. No raindrop. Think it's the flood. The same goes for sellers, people that sell all the time and never buy, yell and scream about others not buying. Anyway, I sat through Bitcoin going from $30 to $2, and I'm still here. TLDR, well, you might have bought higher and are sad. Many might have bought lower and are happy. It's too bad top buyers yell so much louder than bottom buyers. It's noisy for the new folk. That pretty much sums it up. I mean, I think that's just what we said. I mean, that's just clearly showing like, hey, I'm marketing the product here. I get it. I understand people being upset by that and be like, but what about all of us and stuff? And it's like, well, you got to look in the mirror and realize like you were the exit liquidity last time.
Yeah.
And you may have to be patient and the gains aren't here yet. And yeah, maybe you're not going to have the highest ROI in the 5 years to 6 years that you held crypto as like what you could have gotten on this, that, or the other thing. You know, comparison is the thievery of joy. Tell me the meme token that you wish you should have bought at what time, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just zooming out and being more patient like that. And I know it's so hard and nobody wants to do it or hear it, but again, that's why most people are not successful. So what do you take away from his tweet?
Another thing, the reason they're not successful is because they don't fix their situation, right?
Mm-hmm.
They buy high and they just sit there and wallow because it's gone down instead of helping their entry cost. You know, now if somebody bought at 50 cents, now if they haven't bought since then, I can understand why they're miserable. But if you haven't helped fix your own situation, you kind of deserve it. Man, there are so many ways to, we've had all these opportunities to buy in at some of these basement bargain prices that you could have brought your entry price down to probably a penny, 2 pennies, maybe a nickel at this point. Wouldn't it be so much more healthy once we got to 5 cents? If you're like, now I'm in profit, rather than having to wait the whole way up to 50 cents when you bought in. Like I said, people don't do themselves any favors either. And that's the big thing. And that's why they're so loud. They just want to hear themselves and make other people as miserable as they are, rather than, all right, here's the situation I'm in. How do we make it better? That's the goal, is to make your situation better rather than to just wallow in your misery. It just doesn't do anybody any good. That's my take on the whole thing. People just aren't helping themselves.
I agree, and that is a huge thing. I mean, like, yeah, I wasn't even thinking of that. I mean, if you bought at 50 cents or whatever, and even, hey, everybody's
even 40 doesn't matter. 40.
Well, it's funny you say 40 because I was going to say Gary Woods has talked about that funding Jim. He did buy a hefty amount at the 40-cent range.
Yeah.
I did as well. I know I did. And yeah, if you never bought again since then, or maybe just sacked for Pulse and you're like, oh my God, it's been down only, and you haven't been buying all this time, you cannot reap the benefits of any Pulse pump that we would get. Like
No.
I'm happy. I bought the lows on Pulse Chain. No, it wasn't like, oh, the perfect timed. I happen to have hundreds of thousands of dollars and I put it all in at that whatever 4 zeros and a 3 number or whatever it was.
Right.
But I DCA'd at those. No, I've DCA'd everywhere down here for the entire year.
Yeah.
I know some of our friends in the chat have done the same thing as well. And there were times where you felt like you were catching a falling knife. Now that we're in more of a bull market, you feel like I'm buying the dip actually, which is good.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. I mean, if you haven't been buying all this time, you cannot improve your situation. That's what everybody does is they buy the top like that, they suffer, then they want to give up and they don't come back to the market. You have to actually, if you have the conviction in this ecosystem, I can't make you have that. Nobody can. But if you do, you have to improve your situation by doubling down and buying more.
Yep.
And
Yep.
Ewok, the power. Talk about the power of this. And you've given some examples before. I've heard Crypto Coffee do it before. When you're DCAing down, how powerful that is. You're like doubling, tripling your token and like really bringing down your cost basis when you're making those buys at the bottom. Like I think some people don't realize how effective that can be.
Well, the math is crazy. Like you would think, all right, if I bought $1,000 when it was 50 cents, and then I bought $1,000 when it was a penny, most people would think it averages out to be 25 cents, right? Just that's the common math conception that you
Right.
would have. It's not the case. It actually brings it down to, I believe it's 8 or 9 cents as your average buy-in because of the great number, the greater number that you actually get at a penny. It really brings down that average considerably more than just half. So
Yeah.
it does. And then, if you continue to buy at those prices, if you double it again, well, it doesn't just cut that 9 in half either. It brings it down probably in the, 2-3 cent range rather than 4.5 or 5 cents. So each time you double down at a lower price, it's definitely going to help your average buy-in price. And I think that's why we see so many toxic people on X. I don't think they've done anything to better their situation. They just want to be around to make everybody miserable because, well, as long as I'm not putting any more money into this, but they're going to be so very unhappy when it goes higher, and they could have.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. Yeah, it's just a character thing. It's like, are you gonna be brave enough to DCA down here when things aren't going bad, or not? Or what are you gonna do instead? I know people make fun of Silvertooth on Twitter occasionally. He's been all in on crypto, and I'm back, and here I come again. Pulse chain, blah blah blah, and then he's left and Crypto 1, Silvertooth 0. I'm done with this industry. He's done that routine, much like another person we were DMing about the other day that has probably done a little bit more harm than Silvertooth to people. But there's just, come in, come back, come in, come back. Hey, guys, I'm back. Hex is the greatest thing since sliced bread. You know what? I'm leaving Twitter again. It's just, we see that. And now Silvertooth, I think, is in Litecoin at last check.
I was just going to say, the last I checked, he was all in on Litecoin. So
yeah. Well, hey, who knows? Maybe
I hope he does well, man. I
do too.
Anybody in crypto, I hope they do well. I hope they learn that it's still a better system, even if it is Litecoin or Dogecoin or Ripple, if that's what you like, or anything. We all have our favorites, and that's what we're going to talk about. Obviously, we're not going to sit here and have a show on Ripple when neither one of us really hold any Ripple. So it just doesn't make sense because we're not following that group. But I want everybody to succeed. That's kind of the goal of crypto, and eventually the idea is to have a community where our money doesn't really ever have to leave the crypto system, right? We want to be able to transact in whatever crypto that we like, and not have to leave the system. I mean, with the way the dollar is going, if we could keep it in the ecosystem, buy our goods and services and things like that with our crypto, the world would be a much better place, I think. But Just my 2 cents.
Yeah, I'm with you. Some good thoughts though, for sure. I know those tweets from RH riled some people up, but maybe they should in a good way. I mean, you
Yeah,
have to examine yourself a little bit and look. You're never going to see on this show, or not from me. I can't speak for Ewok, but you're never going to see on this show, Richard Hart ass kissing. I mean, like that. That's not going to happen. I don't like it when I do see that. There are some people that just have this, everything he says is, written with the blood of Christ, or, it's not like that. But I think you should examine what he's saying and realize that, there is a lot there. And he's simply saying, I think people actually should look at that second long tweet that he made as like let me help you understand my previous tweet a little bit more, like nicely, by saying that, it's advertising doesn't work if you're just like, oh, but my hex from a couple years ago is down 99% or whatever. I mean, who are you going to bring in with that?
right.
They all know, as he mentions in another tweet, all these legacy, or I shouldn't say legacy, but like greater crypto market people are aware of what eHex is. They're not aware of like what Pulse Chain is and Hex on Pulse Chain and stuff. They just keep quoting that eHex chart and they have no idea what they're talking about. So, you need to that's why I think you need to give the detail of this new stuff as well. So
Yeah.
anyway.
Well, we've got to branch out a little too. I mean, we've got to be the ones that are spreading the word about, hey, by the way, this is Pulse Chain. When you see things like that, and not attack these people because they're posting the wrong stuff or whatever. I think, you get more bees with honey than vinegar. So,
do you want bees? I mean,
well,
I had a hornet's nest in my front porch last summer, and it was.
You want flies?
Sure. I don't know what attracts flies. Yeah, poop, I guess. Yeah, they use poop. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure Jake, the producer, liked the poop joke right there in the background. So